All right, we are live. All right, first ever Nightmare Flick stream. Let's see if we can get out of here without too many technical issues. I don't know if anybody's gonna check this thing out. Very small channel, very first stream, but let's go. Let's talk about Final Destination because we have the new one, Bloodlines, coming up. I'm excited for it. I know I'm not the only one excited for it because I think it actually set records with how many people viewed that trailer. I think Weapons already broke that record, so it didn't last long, but still good for Final Destination.
People are yearning for the Final Destination, man. Everyone wants to get back in that mid 2000s kind of.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and so to me, Final Destination is like, yeah, of course, the first one came out when I was like 6 years old, so I've pretty much always had Final Destination. But for some people, some new horror people who jumped on with like elevated horror or the A24 boom, they've never seen a Final Destination in theaters. This is like a legacy franchise to them, which is crazy. And I now feel like the boomer on the internet. I'm like, what are you talking about? But this will be a lot of people's first time seeing this in theater, so that's really cool. Have you seen that trailer, by the way?
I did see it. I was kind of half paying attention in the theater because I was walking in the Sinners, and so I was like walking up to my seat when it was on. Sinners, amazing movie. Also, by the way, so I kind of saw a little bit of it. I saw the tail end of it when I was walking to my seat in the theater. But I'm excited for it, man. This will be my first Final Destination in theaters, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, and all right, so looking at these, Final Destination 1 and Final Destination 2, the OGs, I think, are the contenders when it comes to being the fan favorites. I think most people, if you ask them, they're going to say one of these is their favorite. We're going to get into full-on reviews for both, but just right off the bat, which one do you prefer?
Absolutely.
Gets the sauce right?
Absolutely, the first one. The second one, I do enjoy the second one, but I think overall, as a movie, for everything that is bringing to the table, I think it's so much. I think it's a better movie. Would I have more fun watching the second one with friends? Probably, but the first one is definitely my pick.
All right, so this is where me being a horror fan comes in, because you're absolutely right. The first movie is better acted. At times it's better shot. It's probably a better script. But as a horror fan, I'm all about the second one because it gets right into the good stuff, the meat of why we love Final Destination, to where it's just more blood, more grisliness, more insane, like Rube Goldberg, blood splattered insanity. And so that's why I prefer that one. But looking at the first one, we have Devon Sawa as our main character, who, watching this, took me back to early 2000s. I just saw Stan from the Eminem video.
So I had no clue that was him. I had no clue. I was watching. I was rewatching. I was like, wait, this. I've seen you in memes like on my timeline. Like the Stan meme. I had no clue that was him, or I hadn't connected the dots yet.
There's a moment where he's like looking down at like a notebook or something, a piece of paper, and all I can hear is, "Dear Slim, I wrote you, but you still ain't calling."
Yeah. I know it seems like it. Yeah, the one where he's like mapping out the deaths and he's like sitting there. I'm like, that was the scene. I was like, okay, that's definitely him.
So on one hand, you got the Slim Shady thing going on, but then they shoehorn this relationship between Sawa and the Ali Larter character, and to me, she was like who Taylor Swift thinks she is in all of her like early videos, where she's like, "Oh, I'm the nerdy girl who's misunderstood. I do art and I read, and like nobody would ever be interested in me." Meanwhile, she, is like a bombshell and like a Hollywood actress. And you're like, what are you talking about? Because you read a book in the airport, you're undesirable.
She was so mysterious, man. She in the early 2000s, that was mysterious. That was the vibe back then of like the quiet girl,
Yeah, well, dude, she's such a not another teen movie type of character, to where she's like Allie Briggs completely, to where she's out doing weird welding art in her driveway. And and then as the movie goes on, they start to kind of like move bangs out of her hair. They kind of sweatshirt, and all of a sudden she's had her like metamorphosis, and she's like, "Oh, I can like this character now." 2000s were a weird time, man.
Very, very strange, man. Coming up as a kid back then was a very, very confusing time. And even the overall tone of the first one is just very. It's so 2000s, man. It's like
so 2000s.
The color grading of all the scenes of the movie as a whole, and some of the scenes, it's like to me the 2000s are very kind of depressing, like because it's still getting over that 90s kind of grunge kind of feel.
It was. So you're coming off the grunge and anger of the 90s, And then 9/11 happens, and then 24/7 Fox News stuff happens where you're seeing, bombs dropped on Iraq and Iran and stuff, people scurrying for their lives. And you started to see that in horror. So maybe not with this movie, but that's when you start to get into your remakes and your Hills Have Eyes and your Hostels and your Saws and like the torture porn era of horror. And character work kind of went by the wayside. Story kind of went by the wayside. Interesting concept. It was just about how brutal, mean, nasty can you be.
It was about like the spectacle, man. It was like, I mean, not to be big Jordan Peele, the reference, but
that we're in now.
Yeah, the spectacle of everything was more important than the actual content.
Yes, absolutely, and that's why it's driving me nuts to see a younger group of horror fans now tell me that 2000s horror is peak, and I'm like, no. As a diehard, dyed-in-the-wool horror fan who lived through that time, 2000s is not peak. 2000s might be the worst of all of the decades of horror. 70s gives you your all-time greats, like your Exorcist, your Jaws, Alien, things like that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween. 80s is just the explosion of video rental and home media and just horror and slashers in general. You go each year and there's 15 classic horror movies. The 90s, you get into your Academy Award winning type horror to where you have stuff like Silence of the Lambs. Then you have Scream, you have Candyman, all these greats. Then you have 2000s, and it's okay, we have 90 million possession movies, a ton of remakes that have none of the charm of the originals, and just a bunch of generic movies that throw in people from the CW channel doing generic things.
It was our horror slop era, man. It was everything was just easy to watch, easy to digest as a viewer. People just wanted to go to the theaters and just see some, I guess, torture porn. And
that's seriously what it was at the time, man. You had to compete with what was going on TV and the news, and things were gnarly back then. So we got this stuff. We had an outlet for even the music back then is angry. We talked about Stan. I mean, the music was so angry back then.
Yeah, Green Day was as big as it's ever been back then. They had, the what was the album that had American Idiot on? Obviously that was a protest to the war or whatever. But
yeah, it's so sad that album is still topical.
Seriously, yeah. I mean, they just headlined Coachella, right?
Yeah. So my boys, that's my favorite band. My boys are doing well in their 50s.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to say all that is to say that this came out in 2000, and this is kind of coming out in Age of Innocence then when we look back, because it predates all that, because this came out a year before 9/11. And when you think about it, good for them on that timing, because this movie can't exist.
No, it would not.
9/11.
No.
You watch that opening when they're in the airport and you see the lack of security, the lack of TSA presence and things like that, and just how they're cavorting and messing around. Would not happen. And then him freaking out on the airplane.
I was in my present self, I was like, dude, where's the freaking air marshal, bro?
Yeah. I was saying, if this came out in 2002, one, it wouldn't, because it'd been so insensitive. They would have to do extensive rewrites. But if it did, that guy, Devin Sawa, he doesn't make it out of the airport. He ain't walking out of there. He is being, he's getting a cavity search, a boot on his neck, and he's being shipped off to Guantanamo or something like that.
No, yeah, he's getting sent to El Salvador. Yeah.
Again, it's a shame this movie's topical. But the premonition thing, that's one of the first main ingredients of Final Destination. And I think it's an amazing little concept to have this person who can see just briefly into the future, save himself and a bunch of others from an awful demise, at least for a little while. And that's one of the first things that the movie really, really gets right. Now, there's other things that we would come to love these movies for, like the deaths and the Rube Goldberg. This thing falls, hits this, that rolls over there, flings across the room, taps that, and then boom, explosion happens.
Yep.
That's what we often think of. This movie, not so much, because we go from the premonition scene where he sees the plane exploding, himself going up in flames, and all of his classmates. Mm-hmm. And then one by one, they start getting picked off. Yep. But the first couple of kills are extremely weak compared to what you think of when you think Final Destination.
No, you could definitely tell they were testing the waters with, they were learning, I want to say, the art form of how to execute on that formula, but you could definitely see them, building and building and building until we get to the final one. I don't want to skip too far ahead, but you could definitely see them building and upping the ante within the film itself. And then they do the same thing within the whole series of movies. They up the ante every single movie with the deaths.
Yeah. So what do you make though? Because we're talking about upping the ante, and like I said, we start off so tame, so soft. Our first kill is a strange one. Again, not really in tune with the rest of the franchise, because Devon Sawa's friend, the kind of geeky guy, is in his bathroom, home alone, shaving with no shaving cream, no water, no hair on his neck.
Yeah,
extremely weird.
Bro was just messing around, man. He was playing with his dad's.
Kevin McAllister from Home Alone.
Yeah,
if Death hadn't interfered, he would have done the whole thing.
I was more like when the strangulation starts to happen, when he gets caught up in the wire. I was like, dude, that's a really thin wire for the shower curtain. I was like, dude, that is like, I don't know, that I've never seen a wire being, I know it is used, but like I personally, we've always had like a pole for our like shower hangers or whatever. Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, ooh, this is already kind of irking me, because like I'm so not used to having like a wire hanging like that.
So this whole scene bothers me though, like because it feels like too many cooks in the kitchen. So this was produced by New Line. So you had Bob Shea, who did like Nightmare on Elm Street and really put his hands in that movie as well. And they kind of do some Nightmare on Elm Street stuff with this first kill, to where the guy dies in a shower. It's made to look like he unalived himself, but then the water all of a sudden recedes back into like the toilet from which it leaked.
Yeah. And on my rewatch, I was like, wait. Does that happen ever again in any of the movies?
No, why does it need to happen? Death can't be brought to court.
No, seriously. Yeah. When I was rewatching it, I was like, wait. I don't remember any of the other movies, because obviously I don't rewatch the first one as much as I rewatch maybe the more recent ones. I was like, wait, they never do this, where they never do it again, where, unless I'm wrong, they never do it again where they hide, death covers its tracks, like
well,
what?
They start to ditch it, and that's what I'm saying. It's so funny. It's so much like Nightmare on Elm Street, because in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, they make it look like homicide, suicide. And then all of a sudden, you have Johnny Depp being swallowed by his bed, and a blood geyser shoots out, and you're like, "Oh, I guess Freddy gave up on that ruse. I guess we're just into supernatural kills now." Yeah, and that's what kind of happens with this movie. But I also just don't like, because they try to do like a physical manifestation of death so we can see it, and we just don't need it. We don't need weird swirly blackness in the mirror. It feels very like Paranormal Activity, Ghost Dimension. That movie's bad. This effect is bad. So if anyone anytime eventually comes to this video and you find this and you're going to make movies, if you're going to show death, don't make it swirly, weird, black visual effects, because it doesn't work. It was enough to have bad things going on. We understand it's death. And we also understand, we have like the really creepy John Denver music coming in. That's a nice touch. John Denver died in an airplane crash. So you have that little extra dark layer there. That's enough. So I don't love that kill. I don't love the next kill, because it's Kerr Smith's girlfriend, and she just does the Regina George. She just backpedals out into traffic and gets smashed by a bus.
It's so iconic, though. They reused that death again later on in one of the, I think 4, I think it is. I think they reused that, where in front of the hospital, the other girl gets hit, but it's literally like shot for shot the same.
Yeah,
like, walks out and then. So
yeah, it's just when I think of these movies, I'm like, I don't want a guy slip in on a puddle of water. I don't want a girl walking in front of a bus. But I mentioned Kerr Smith. He's like the ultimate typecast douchebag of a 2000s horror movie. Like he has such the look for this that casting directors is like, dude, if you're gonna be in a movie, you have to be a scumbag. And even more so in My Bloody Valentine 3D. It's insane that his character survives in that movie and is almost like a good guy in the end, because he's this like bad, abusive sheriff who impregnates another woman. Like he's having an affair, impregnates her, and he gets to be the hero.
Yeah.
It's so strange. But even in this movie, he ends up driving onto the train tracks and being like,
he was so extra in this movie, dude. He actively like frustrated me. I'm like, dude, why are you so like on 10? Like, I know you're supposed to be like stereotypical like jock kind of douchey guy, but like, dude, you're doing the most right now. Like, you locked them all in the car and you drove on there, and now you're surprised when you can't get out the freaking car. Like,
yeah, all of a sudden he's like, oh, this may not have been a good idea. He's just a completely like irredeemable character. And so you want him, usually in horror, he would get the best death.
Yeah.
And so it feels like such blue balls that he doesn't get that. There at the end, they do like the kind of thing to where he's about to get crushed by the billboard as like our final send off, and they just cut away. I'm like, dude, you have to give this guy's comeuppance.
Yeah, they did blue balls there. Yeah, because I was watching. I was like, oh, finally, dude, they're in Paris. You know, they're happy. And even in Paris, after everything they've been through, he's still kind of a little bit of a douchebag.
He's never changing.
When Devon Sawa's character is kind of explaining, he was like, oh wait, it skipped this and this and this, and he was trying to explain. He's like, well, why would that happen? It's like, bro, dude, like, why are you being so hostile still? Like, you guys have been through like death together, literally. Like, why are you?
You see that? I see that. How did the original writers and producers of this movie not see that? Because the original ending was going to be Devon Sawa's character, the main character, when he goes to save the girl from her car with the electric cables flying around in the fire. He's supposed to get lit on fire and die. And then the movie cuts to, because he died, he broke death's curse. He did it out of sequence.
Yeah.
And we find out that at some point he and the main girl hooked up, and she's pregnant, and she gives birth to their baby. And so that's how this weird, like, schmaltzy, you know, hit the violins.
But they play with that idea a little bit in the second one with pregnancy, where
yeah. So they do it a lot better with that one, I feel like. But to my whole point with that was that in itself is such a reach, because that whole relationship just comes out of nowhere. And I don't know if it's because of rewrites or too many cooks in the kitchen, but you have Devon Sawa and you have Ali Larter's character. At one point, she even says, like, you know, what, we go to school for 3 years, you never even spoke to me before. Yeah. And then all of a sudden later, they've had no real heart-to-hearts or anything. She goes, babe. I'm like, babe?
Yeah. Seriously, yeah. Like, she's like, oh,
you're one of those girls.
I was like, wait, hold on. Did I miss a scene? Because, like, there is definitely a rapport that was being displayed that you hadn't seen in the movie at all.
Yeah. Apparently, we missed a lot. Apparently, there's a lot on the cutting room floor if this was supposed to end in them having a baby. Because I just didn't see it. When she said that babe, I was like, oh, I know that type of girl. You just kind of put those feelers out there. Like, how do we feel about this one right here?
So much sense, though. Because there was kind of a tonal shift in their relationship about halfway through the movie, where you know, knowing tropes and stuff and things of that nature, you were kind of expecting them to get together because trauma.
Right. Early 2000s horror movie.
But you never see it on screen. But you can see the remnants of that relationship that was left on the cutting room floor, and how the scenes that they did leave in.
I want to see it. I think it would be a way less entertaining movie, but just because I have the original, I now want to see the other version where they make time for all that. Because how do you have time to build a connection, fall in love, and become babe when all you're doing is going, I've figured out that through my premonition, this is the order of deaths, and now we got to go save our friends one at a time before they get picked off. Where is there time to start, courting?
There was nothing. Yeah, it was definitely. It's interesting that they didn't do an uncut version of that, because another thing about the 2000s, the horror movies, they had uncut movies of uncut versions. Maybe this was too early. This is too early. So this is a more innocent time before like torture porn era. But I know exactly what you're saying. Growing up that era, every DVD had the with new, never before seen footage, uncut, raw. Yeah. And it'd just be like one more F-bomb, and maybe a kill would go on for like 3 seconds longer. And DVD for that. I never got a chance to watch the uncut versions growing up. So to know that that's what I was missing out, I'm glad. Well, no, I'm glad, but I don't feel like I missed out on anything.
You're not missing much of anything, at least not in the movies that I can think of. But yeah, there's some real weirdness with this, like we talked about with their relationship, but also the Tony Todd character. Let me get your feeling on this. So obviously, Tony Todd, rest in peace, horror great. He was Candyman. Yep. And he's in here as the mortician. But is he more than a mortician? Is he death itself, or is he just like a harbinger of doom? Because he's unlike anybody else in this movie.
No, his vibes are. He fails the vibe check at every moment. You know what? I'm gonna buy into that. He is some kind of in the movies, his name is Bloodworth. I'm gonna buy into he is some sort of manifestation of the Grim Reaper or some kind of death angel or something like that.
That's what I've never heard anyone say that. To me, I'm like, there's no way he can just be a mortician. I understand that's a strange field for your career, but like the way he talks, the things he says, the dialogue, the delivery is so purposeful. There's no way that guy is just a guy. Like, horror, tropes, harbinger of doom, Friday the 13th, you're all doomed, death curse.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, he straight up is just relishing in it and doing way too much. There's no way that guy leaves his mortician job and then goes to Taco Bell and was like,
No,
"Can I
like
have
no,
a
no,
taco?"
no. He doesn't even walk on like screen. He just kind of like slinks on, like so glides in almost. And I mean, I think in the second one when they go to the mortician's office, he comes out of the cooler, out of the smoke, and it's just very ethereal. It's like
He strides
I don't
in
know.
with like a knowing look in his eye. Like he was directed to look at them like, "I know why you're here. I
Yeah.
know it's hunting you. I know they're like eye of death is on you. I know you're cursed."
That's my headcanon. He's a some kind of representation of death itself.
Yes, and a much better one than the weird swirly black stuff in the mirror
No,
or in
yeah,
the
yeah,
teapot
seriously,
with
yeah.
that chaperone teacher lady. Who that whole death sequence, I loved it when I was a kid. As an adult, that whole thing is so unrealistic and silly. To
Yeah.
where she like, first of all, she spills alcohol on the floor. I have no idea why. She just fills the mug and then flings it. And I went back and rewatched it and I'm like, what did she see? I have no idea what
Well,
she saw
I
that made
thought
her
when she
think.
was pouring in her mug, she had ice in there or something, and it like cracked the side of the mug. And so
Oh,
when she was
okay.
walking away, it was kind of dripping, which it was like, there's no way it was dripping that much to have it.
No, and then it falls into the back of the old school like computer, and it starts a fire. The glass shards blow out the front of the computer screen,
Yeah.
and then like right into the jugular. And as an adult, you're like, okay, that wouldn't happen. You can drop a little vodka on the appliances; they aren't going to
Yeah.
explode and kill you like maximum overdrive.
Yeah,
But as a kid, or like I said, 6 or 7 when I first saw this, something about this sequence really rocked me as a little kid because I was like,
yeah.
oh, other horror movies, you got to have a big bad in a mask come after you to kill you with a machete. This movie points out that life is very, very fleeting. I can just be walking around my house, trip, pull towels off the knife block, and they'll land on me. I'm dead. It's over. That's a wrap.
It's like life is so very fickle in these movies, and there's just so many like minute things that happen that would happen normally in real life, but they just Rube Goldberg, it just kind of dominoes into somebody just dying in the most graphic, terrible way ever.
Her death is just like one dumb thing after another. Leading up to Devon Sawa getting there, finding her body. He has the FBI coming after him. He sees a knife sticking out of her chest. She's like dead already. He grabs the bloody knife, pulls it out of her torso, looks at it, and then just drops it.
Yeah, when I did it, I was like, dude, I know you're a kid, but like you know the FBI is on your ass, right? Like, why would you associate yourself with any kind of potential evidence that's going to be
everything about her death's convoluted, and then the aftermath of him finding her and everything that's convoluted as well.
And then the house blows up. Like he realizes like, oh, the gas is on. I got to get out of here. And then Ali Larter's character is like outside for some reason. And he's like, run, and he runs.
There's so many weird things though, because okay, you have the train track scene, and that one again, Sean William Scott, the guy that plays Stifler, he's in here and he gets his head.
I forgot
cut
he was in this
half.
as well, by the way. Yeah.
Huh?
I forgot that he was in this as well.
Okay, can we talk about his character? What are they doing with that character? Why is he like
I thought he was gonna have a bigger role, like a role. Like I didn't remember him being in the movie, and when I saw him, I was like, "Oh, Stifler's in this." I was like, "Oh, I can't wait to see what they do with him," because, like,
yeah, he pretty much just walks around making like weird, nervous expressions and going, "Dick."
Yeah, like he's just goofy walking around, and then he just eventually ends up. What was his death? He's
by the railroad.
Oh yeah, the piece of metal, and the piece of metal comes in.
Yeah. So that's an example of when I was a kid and I saw that one, it was gory for a 6-year-old. So that kind of unsettled me, but also just the fact that it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
There was like a year after I watched this movie as a little kid that anytime we were parked at like a railroad track, I was just like, oh shit. I'm like scanning, looking for little pieces of metal or debris, litter, anything like that can be flung at me and freaking in my life. So I like his death, but then it immediately goes to our main character, Alex, has realized that like, oh, I'm next because the seating order, it then goes to me, which we find out is not true because he remembers he changed seats with those girls on the plane. But he thinks it's him, so he goes to the cabin. He barricades himself up in this cabin. And I don't understand it because like you could have just checked into any hotel room, it would have been safer. He's in this like dilapidated cabin with like sharp instruments all over the place. It's almost like the cabin from The Evil Dead. That's where he's going to hide out. and he starts eating cat food. Why is he eating cat food?
He had some other issues going on too. I feel because even before, like, I mean, they lay it out the very first scene when he's getting his stuff together to go to the airport with his parents in the room. He's already he's keyed in on like coincidences that are going on. I forgot.
You're right. He's a little off from the start, and so is
yeah. So he is already a little strange guy. So like this was his one bad day. The plane crash was one bad day that got him to go completely.
You're right. And so a nice little note here. I'm glad you said that because the flight number is 180. The plane is 180, as in like his life that day, everything does a 180. One fateful
that's great.
That like re-steers everything. And then you watch every sequel, they find like multiple occasions to drop that 180 in there and talk about how all these characters are fated to have like these terrible, awful deaths. So that's a good point out right there. But the Sean William Scott thing, sorry, just to revert to that, because I got to understand, do you think he was trying to break typecast? Do you think he was like, look, I'm not just the jock, douchebag, sporty guy like Stifler. I can be a nerd too. Because it makes no sense that he's afraid of Kerr in this because he's bigger than him. And he's walking around with his hat backwards. He has the hockey jersey. He looks like a jock. He's riding his bike everywhere. Like, if he's supposed to be a nerd, it's the least.
I think he was just in there maybe he was trying to break typecast. I can't imagine. He was probably getting a good paycheck. I think that's all it comes down to. He doing it, and he knew his lines. The role they gave him, they probably used him as well for like facial recognition for the trailers because they could definitely use him in some of the some of the B-roll for some of like the couple trailers that come out before the movie. People back then, the internet wasn't such a big thing. So if you're watching TV and you see a trailer for this movie and you say, "Oh, Stifler's in this, I gotta go see this. He's probably gonna be really funny." Yeah. And you get to the theater and it's like, this dude's a freaking weirdo who rides his bike around town and loves wearing
his performance is so strange that I was like, are they trying to say special needs?
Let's indulge them. Maybe.
There's so many weird choices with this character. So many weird choices with the Tony Todd stuff, with him eating cat food. There's so many things where they talk about almost ESP or like a psychic link, something supernatural between Ali Larter and him, and they have like these abilities. There's just so many dropped ideas. But at the end of the day, I am glad Bob Shea was on this as a producer. He really botched the ending of Nightmare on Elm Street, but I think he got this one right because instead of getting the weird Salwa dies in a fire and then Ali Larter gives birth to a baby when we had no idea that they ever even hooked up, we get the ending we saw. It's where they think they've beaten the death curse. They finally take that trip to France. They're toasting. They're having a good time. And then shit.
This is trademark Final Destination. This is the blueprint for the rest of the movies.
Yes.
The rest of the movies follow this exact pattern and exact cadence of how.
It's the Saw moment. It's Jigsaw standing up and going game over and slamming the door as the score kicks in. Yeah. This is that, right? Because from now on, you can't make one of those movies and go, I'm just gonna have a limp ending. I'm not gonna do that.
No, they all follow the same cadence. It's like starts out, the accident happens, then they slowly start to pick up on that. They think they beat it. That's really to sum it up. They think they beat it, and they get to the end, and they're like, "Oh, we did it. We beat it."
You can't beat it. It's death.
Yeah, and then nope, you can't beat it. Blah blah blah. And it's like we keep coming back for it, man. We're just.
How much do the writers have to hate finding a new way for them to figure out what is going on and then to come up with plot twists? Because when you get this assignment or you write a script for this, you just want to do the kills. You just want to do the big premonition scene. You just want to have big like sets and explosions and crazy Rube Goldberg kills. And then you have to, that one little bit, you have to actually do some like homework and figure out like, okay, how do I make my brain work to where it's not like the other movies with how they figure out what's going on.
It's like the dialogue is in the story is in service of the deaths. It's like that is what people at the end of the day, going forward from this movie, that is what people are coming to the theaters, getting their butts in the seats for.
Yeah.
How can we?
It's just the first domino. It's the first domino. Yeah. They're like, we have to do this, press this one, and then everything else. It's like the Goldberg machine. Then everything else can happen, and we'll get our desired outcome. So, what would you rate the first movie out of 5? I gave it a 3. To me, script is just good enough. Performances are just good enough for a horror movie while having a new concept that was fresh at the time to where once you figure out what's going on, you're like, I got to see what's going to happen next. I got to see what it's going to be for each one of these characters.
I'm going to go a little bit more. I'm going to go 3 Can I do halves?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do 3.5. Just because I mean, I'm thinking of it, the context of the time. Like we were talking about earlier, this was very early 2000s kind of thing. This was it laid the groundwork for this series, as well as any movie that would come afterwards. So I give it a half a point for that kind of
No, that's
contextual
the reason.
framing.
So speaking of what would come afterwards, let's just move right on in to Final Destination 2. And I'm the opposite of you here. I prefer it for the fact that it just gets right into it. It knows why I'm there. It's like Saw 2. Saw, they know, okay, the first one, people like the traps and they want to see insane, grisly deaths. They want to see how far we can push the envelope. This one, they know we need a higher body count and we need to be way flashier. Our premonition scene, it has to be an all-timer, and this one is goated with the log truck scene.
Yeah, it is. It is. It literally gave a generation of millennials and older Gen Zers such as myself the fear of log trucks on the highway.
You just don't follow a log truck. You just don't.
You just don't.
Even though the physics don't check out. Like I've seen the behind the scenes thing. They prove that they try to go practical and actually drop logs off the truck. They don't bounce. They're too heavy. No. So you couldn't have it bounce and then fly through a cop's windshield and then his head.
No.
But
metal poles, yes. Metal poles, yes. Yes. Or aluminum poles and tubing, probably. But
yeah, PVC wood, later in this movie.
Yeah. Those would definitely bounce. But yeah, the wood, no, definitely not.
Yeah. So they go bigger, meaner, just faster, harder with this one. They get right into what we like. The characters are worse, I'll say that, but it doesn't matter because they're not here that long. No. There's still a little bit of strangeness, a little bit of weirdness because they're doing stuff like all of a sudden death won't let you take yourself out. You know, the black guy tries to put the gun to his head and then it misfires 6 times in a row. And then they think that we just forgot that because later in the movie, AJ Cook is like, you know what? I'm going to save the day. I'm going to break the sequence. And she drives her car off into a lake, a hospital lake, by the way. What hospital has its own lake? A hospital main walkway leads down to like a little pier that she drives off of and she tries to drown. And we're supposed to think it's going to work. We've already shown you can't take yourself out. Death doesn't play by those rules.
Yeah, and going back to the black guy trying to kill himself. By the way, fun fact: the black guy that the actor, he's the voice actor for the original voice actor for Kratos in God of War. I know this is
no way. All right,
but like I'm seeing when I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, I'm like seeing faces of people that like I've seen recently in the last 10 years, and like obviously they're a lot older now. And I would see their face. I'm like, you look so familiar. And I went on the IMDb and I pulled it up. I was like, oh, it's Kratos, like OG Kratos before they switched it in the.
I didn't know that one. I know the main girl is from Criminal Minds. I know the kid that gets blown up by the barbecue is Mickey from Shameless.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. There's a few of them in here. But no, I wasn't aware of that. That's a cool one. But the log truck scene, iconic. But I would also argue the dude getting the wire fence shot at him by the explosion.
That was great.
Sliding into thirds. That's an all-timer for this series. Yeah. So you gotta love it for that. Even that weird ass kid who's in the dentist office getting his teeth drilled, and then like the mobile falls in his mouth and he starts choking.
Yeah,
there's all sorts of stuff going on with a fish tank leaking and like sparks coming out of an outlet and birds flying through a window.
This is where they found their stride in this one with their mechanisms of death. They really developed and they were pretty creative with how they expanded on the originals death scenes and really just built on it and made it more fun. It made it crazier.
Exactly. We don't have anybody stumbling in the bathtub. We don't have anybody walking out in front of a bus. No, we have a guy trying to go harass pigeons and then a glass pane falling on him and him getting snapped backwards in half and popped like a freaking fruit gush.
Dude, my favorite. Okay, so it's crazy to say it's my favorite part, but my favorite thing about that is that happened. And then the next scene when the ambulance is picking his body up, they have him in a body bag. And I just imagine they just.
I wanted the deleted scene of them with like ladles.
There's no way like the mom was like touching the bag. I'm like, dude, you're touching like probably a bunch of like guts and amorphous kind of body parts. It was, I don't know if it's a goof or a gaff that they did that, but like it low key, like you can see like his feet sticking up, and it's like, dude, there's no way they put his body together enough to put a silhouette in there of the bag. Like,
I clocked that too, and I watched it, and I pointed it out to my wife and started laughing. I forgot about it. I'm so glad you pointed out. But that whole character, man, all of it feels like it's supposed to be a gag because he looks like he's almost 20 years old. But when we first see him, he's like he looks like he's in a little kid's room, almost like he's in a race car bed. He's being tucked in by his mama, who like kisses him on the head, all but gives him a warm glass of milk. And you're like, okay, so this guy's playing like, a 10-year-old or something, or a little kid, elementary schooler. And he goes to the dentist, still feels like that. But he's also like this angsty teenager who the doctor thinks he smokes too much. It's the weirdest character.
I mean, fool me once with Stifler's character in the first one. Maybe he had a little bit of something else going on with him too, man. Maybe some other issues.
The world of Final Destination is weird because even the black guy, until I rewatched it, I didn't realize he's a teacher.
No, yeah, I gotta teach my kids, because when he's locked up in the police station, he's I gotta teach my kids. Like, dude, really? You're a freaking like what kind of teacher? I don't even remember.
Is he the one zipping around through traffic on his motorcycle?
Yeah, dude, you're line riding in your Ducati on the highway. You're heading to class. Like, really? That's what you're doing? Like, I hope you're not teaching kids. You better be like a professor or something.
So for the weirdness, and then like I'm with you. I think there's intentional hidden bits of humor in this, because that highway to hell scene is just so over the top to where they set it up and you're like, was this death? Is this a curse? Or is it just going to always happen? Because these people are reckless. We have people driving high off their asses. We have people chugging beers in traffic. We have a woman flashing people her titties on the back of a motorcycle.
Dude, and the cop is right there.
Yes.
Like seriously, they were driving. Main character, forgot her name.
What's it called? AJ Cook. I know that.
Yeah, AJ Cook. Yeah, so she's driving, right, and all her friends in the car smoking doobies in the back, whatever. They notice the cop is right behind. The state police, mind you, is right behind them. And dude is like, "Oh, we gotta throw the weed out, bro." And they throw the weed out right in front of them, like literally right on the cop. Yeah, like there's so much crime going on. It like in that like 100-foot area on the highway of them all driving. It's like, dude, the cop probably didn't know who to pull over at that point.
The only person who gets arrested in the whole movie is the pregnant Latina woman later in the movie, because they're trying to save her. She's the only one who gets arrested.
It was honestly mind-blowing. I had a good laugh rewatching that scene, because it was just so comical. Like everything that was just so reckless. And then the deaths themselves, they're hilarious. There's so many explosions, so many things that wouldn't explode are just blowing up.
Yes, they use so much of the budget on this moment.
Yeah.
You have tree trunks or logs just going through people's heads and explode, and you have the guy just being like slid across the pavement, and then the bike coming and smacking him and the blood flying out.
And then it blows up.
This is an all-timer scene. Like, they did so good with this, and then the rest of the movie just kind of feels a bit rushed at times. She's like, Ali Larder, she's in a padded room. I don't really understand that. She's trying to be safe. I get that, but like, she has all these pictures pinned to the wall, so she's allowing sharp instruments into the room. She has a TV a screen that she's watching. So you have electronics.
You might be able to
like the most prominent threat in the first movie.
So I read into that. She wasn't in like a facility, right?
I think she did. I think she admitted herself.
And they're giving that was another thing. When I saw all the stuff on the wall, I'm like, dude, they're indulging her in this craziness right now, because there's no way, if she was actually checked into a real mental health facility, they're not gonna let her plot out her fantasies on the padded room walls. But oh my gosh, when I saw her come back, I was like, oh, she's alive. I was like, it's great, she's back.
Yeah, and I thought it was, at first I was like, okay, it's a bit silly, but I'll go with it because we got our main back. Maybe Devin Sawa will come back, because we didn't actually see him die on screen. No, they killed him off screen by way of falling brick.
Yeah, it's
such an insult. And like, I've seen a bunch of rumors for why he wasn't brought back. I have to believe he asked for like too much money. Why else would you give him such a lame?
Side note, what was the box office? Let me look up the box office for the first one. I'm so curious. It was
so the first one had to be like a cultural event, because I remember all of like my older cousins and things talking about this movie. I remember older people really being into this, and that's how I came to see it, because they showed me it when I was like 7.
So the budget for the first one was $23 million estimated. Gross worldwide ended up grossing $112 million. Almost 113 million was 112.8. So he probably did ask for a pay jump.
He had to. He's the face of it. He had other movies and TV shows that he was known for all throughout the 90s. Like, they did him dirty. If you're going to kill him off screen, can he get a cool death? Can we get Can we get like a shot from the back of an actor that looks like him from the back, like a stunt double, and then something crazy
man.
gnarly happens to him?
Yeah.
A newspaper clipping of him
as the main character, we needed to see that. We had to see that. Like if we didn't, the fact that we didn't is pretty crazy. And
just don't burn bridges. Just don't burn bridges, because like you made so much money. It was a smash hit with the first one. At some point, you may want to bring him back into the fray. Don't kill him off then. Just don't say anything about him whatsoever. He's missing. For all we know, he's in a cabin somewhere eating cat food.
Yeah, they played their cards. They shouldn't have played that card. They should have kept that in the tuck, because Lord knows if he would have come back and God forbid this newest one, that would have been a huge thing.
Yeah, I knew like family was going to be a big tie-in for this one, so I just assumed Devon Sawa's character, and then I went back and watched this, and I was like, oh no, that's right, they killed him off already.
Yeah.
So I just think they shot themselves in the foot, especially because we're now in this age of requels and reboots, and so you have all these legacy characters.
It would have been perfect, but obviously they don't have the foresight 25 years ago to know, but still, it's definitely a missed opportunity.
Do you have the box office for the second one? Because I'd have to imagine this did numbers. I mean, the first one was beloved. It had a great performance at the box office. And the second one has the log truck scene. And it had been great word of mouth.
Well, so surprisingly, the budget for the second one here is 26 million. So only 3 million more.
Wow, they did a lot with it.
And it grossed almost 91 million worldwide.
That's not bad. That's not what I thought.
They did a drop off there, enough for them to greenlight, more and more. So like, decent. But yeah, it is hard. I'm guessing that extra $3 million is that scene, the log truck scene, the very beginning, with the deaths, the premonition scene, whatever.
Yeah, because nothing else would really, like, the sets are pretty small, pretty confined. A lot of these actors weren't big names at the time. It's so 2000s again, though, because even the group that starts off in this movie, can you see these girls hanging out with each other, let alone the weird stoner, like, fat guy in the back seat?
No, I was definitely a mismatch. Yeah, it was definitely nightmare blunt rotation.
Yeah, and then speaking of nightmare blunt rotation, they're sitting there smoking weed. And
they actually were in the blunt rotation. Yeah.
Yeah, then they get smoked there at the end. They get blown up.
Yeah.
Ali Larter gets blown up. I feel like that was an underwhelming. It's not as bad as a brick to the head like Sawa, but they even did her as a BOGO. She was like a buy one get one kill, because they kill off Eugene, the black guy with the oxygen tank leak, and they're like, "Oh, while we're at it, Ali Larter's still here, so you can get roasted too."
I was like, "Oh, it was very unceremonious." I was like, "No way, they just blew her up like that." Like, I was expecting her to, I was kind of hoping that she would be like the one kind of through line through all these movies. Obviously, I'd seen like the newer ones. She's not in the newer ones, but I was kind of hoping that they would have at least carried her through. Like, I think like conceptually that'd be pretty cool, have one person like through it, but maybe they thought it would have gotten tired having her around. There's only so much you can do.
It's just, again, we talked about keeping horror movies are just about taking $1 and turning it into $3. So this always happens. There are so many beloved horror sequels that the next movie, you think logically that movie is going to center on the hero, and they always get killed in the first act. So I guess we should be thankful that didn't happen here, that they let her make it through the end. But other than that, the characters just total like ramped up cliches and stereotypes in true horror fashion. None of them are really memorable except for their deaths. We have the woman in the elevator who is the mom to the kid that gets killed by the glass pane. That weirdo old man sniffing her hair in the elevator.
That was so weird. That was so out of left field.
Nation's low key weird.
Yeah, like it was out of left field, and it was like, whoa, is he really doing this right now? And then like it was almost like payment, like the fact that she died in front of him like that. Like, dude, you know what? You deserve to see something that messed up, because like, bro, you are a creep. Like,
he is a creep. But that's what I'm saying. That's why I like it more than that first one, because even when the movie's strange, even when it's not great, it's always entertaining. Like even that first kill, the dude who hits the lotto. And he comes up the stairs with like the giant Mac box and like his Rolex and his gaudy ring and like all this other crap. That kill with him getting his hand stuck in the garbage disposal, and then a grease fire, and then he escapes the grease fire and the garbage disposal only for the fire escape to like take his eye and his life. That's so much better than a dude falling in his tub.
It's way, way better. It was, that one, that specific death. I don't know, eye stuff, when things get poked through eyes, it kind of it skeeves me out a little bit, but that's what I'm going there for. So like I was definitely into it overall. But yeah, definitely up the ante from the first one. Just in comparison to the first death scene in the first one, they knew what they were gonna do, and the fact that that's the first one just lets you know off rip it's gonna get crazier, and that's already a crazy death to begin with. So you're going in like, oh wow, like that would have been that if you had that death in the first movie, that would have been like one of the final deaths. But now it's the first one, so it's literally showing the ante from the beginning. It's letting you know where we're starting.
True. Yeah, right
And
away
then,
we have the log scene and then that. So they're like, buckle up, you're in for it, bitches.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what would you rate this one out of 5? Because you gave the first one a 3.5. So what does this one go on that sliding scale? I would still say on Letterboxd, I gave this one a 3 as well, just for all different reasons.
If I'm watching it by myself, I'm probably gonna give it a 2.5. But if I'm watching with friends, I'm probably gonna give it a 3, maybe 3.5, because it's all about the experience. And
that's a good point.
You never, I want to say never, but like movies like this, you want to watch with your friends. You want to have a communal kind of viewing experience, because half the fun of it is the after movie conversation where you're like, dude, you remember this scene, and like everyone, just like we're doing now, everyone talking about their favorite deaths, their favorite elements of the movie. So with people, I'm giving it a 3, 3.5, maybe. I'll stick with a 3. But solo, you're watching it by yourself. You don't have anyone on the couch to like look and be like,
Yeah, it's one of those horrors. It's an event movie, but that's why they made so much money. Especially for like a younger audience, where it can still be a little bit scary or feel dark at times because life is so like fleeting. It's just way more effective for that reason. So I think you're right. If you're watching with people, you're gonna have more of a pop for certain moments. I can't wait to watch the new one in theaters for that reason. I think it's going to do really well looking at the numbers for the trailer. And just that first teaser with the guy getting a septum piercing hooked and then he like falls into the fire and all that. It looks like they understand the assignment. So I think they're going to give us some goodness. Maybe it can be better than a 3 out of 5. Maybe it become the best. I need to watch the third one again because I always really loved that one. I remember the acting being putrid, like so wooden even compared to these other 2 movies.
The third one is if I remember correctly, that is the roller coaster one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to finish my rewatch sessions before leading up to this new one. So that one's next on my rewatch list, and I genuinely cannot wait.
I remember it being a good time. Now you're probably going to come back like, dude, 1.5. What the hell is that? I remember roller coasters. Everybody's been afraid to be on a roller coaster at some point. So that it's like the airplane thing. It just taps into one of these fears that's like universal, and they do it so well with that sequence. The effects, the visual effects, they largely stand up for considering when this came out. But the tanning bed stuff is awesome. The nail gun stuff is awesome. I think that's
the third one.
That's the third one.
Oh man. Okay, so that was my introduction to the series. That third one, I was old enough to have access to cable TV to be able to watch it. So
yeah, like
that was
TBS probably for some reason. I don't know why TBS likes this movie so much.
Actually, you know what? I don't think it was cable. I think our family had like a preview weekend of like Stars or HBO. It was back in the day when they had those channels. I think they still do have channels now, but I mean, who really got cable anymore? But I remember waking up early one morning and no one else was up, and I've like actually tuned in and watched it, and it was, as a kid, it was groundbreaking. And not being
these movies are oddly slept on as like introductory horror. Like I think these are ones you can definitely show a kid and get them really into the genre. It worked for me. Saw it when I was 6 or 7. My younger brother, I remember him watching the third one with me and my mom. It was his first one that he ever saw. And I remember with the tanning bed kills, the 2 girls get topless. And so my mom immediately was like, all right, cover your eyes. So he's back there. But the whole time he's watching like this. And the idiot he told on himself because something happened, like something falls, keeps them pinned in the tanning beds. And my mom goes, oh, that wouldn't happen. And then my little brother was like, yeah, that's really stupid. There's no way it would have fallen like that. And she's like, wait, what are you?
That's real though. That's so real. I mean, dude, looking at it really,
that was the only way you're going to see anything as a kid. You just had to hold it.
It was in the middle of the 2000s. It was 06 when this one came out. I know we're not going to completely talk about this one, but you can see where we're halfway through the 2000s. There have been multiple other franchises that have spawned, horror franchises that have spawned in the time between, the first Final Destination in this one. So they began incorporating, there was always like gratuitous nudity in the horror movies at that time.
True. No boob in the first movie. One set of boobs in the second movie. 2 sets of boobs in the third movie. So
yeah.
Are there 3 sets of boobs in the fourth movie? I guess I'll have to go check that one out and report back.
I think it's just so cool that like the franchise evolved with the current climate. It started a lot, but it also evolved with the climate and brought more along with it. So that amazing. I think it's super, super cool. I can't wait to rewatch that one.
It's good to have it back. Yeah, it's good to have it back because even when they're doing the same thing over and over again, even if it's just Mousetrap Horror Edition, it's an event. Yeah, there's only one Final Destination, and it's not like I said, in an era that was nothing but possession movies and remakes, this was something like uniquely its own. So thanks for joining me here, man. I hope you had a good time. I'm gonna go watch the other ones too. So if you had a good time, you get free. Maybe we'll cover 3, 4, and 5. We'll see how this video does once people catch on to it and everything. We'll get good conversation going, man. But thank you for coming on.
All right, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. Have a good night.
All right.